She worked here when she was going to college and
I think South End is doing better.
they did much better.
And the new administrator, not for St. Francis, maybe the best thing that happened.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I'm not complaining.
People are not happy.
Right. She's tough. That's not her.
Well, those are these things out there for them, but they have to comply with them. Most part-time job is 72 hours one week and 54 the next week. So 126 hours 2 weeks time. And then they complain about during overtime. And if they get the heat power station on, they pick them out. She had to go to, what is it, past south of Dexter before we get to Malden, Bernie. He was had to go 3 times 1 week. And then the next stop was Marble Hill. And trash. And you're talking a lot. But in other places, you just hop in the car and go home real quick. So,
You see, Southeast is doing a really good job.
You could bypass this word for
Fortunate
security.
to find that.
are you on Southeast border?
No,
Okay.
I used to be on St. Francis.
Okay.
Southie does it completely different. They basically, you're
It's easier that way.
a friend of Southie. Your name gets called.
Hey, how are you?
Be invited
Nice
to
to meet
your
you.
board. I was kind of vote on it.
See, I was on Southeast member for years.
And I was invited to join their board several times, but I was in St. Francis as a county officer. in Chapel House. St. Francis is still
When did that change?
When we got into the discussion. They still have few deposits there, but they main accounts to the Commerce Bank.
Well, we're gonna have to find them.
It's all right.
I'm sure what kind of crowd we draw.
Like, I'm sure they could be more dependable.
I would think. The first time on the school board, the things that are coming when on television. Look like they're all through this stuff. You show up at
So you
the
still
break,
hanging
you
out
don't
with
show
your,
up at the break. Yeah, I've been saying to my people.
Yes, I'm
Oh,
good.
is that right? I love the usual people meet. Okay.
So,
See, like, that real education.
oh.
I was talking to everyone that said that. He was the same thing.
They were like, drop off the board, push down, well, later getting.
One way, you know.
After about 30 days. It's fine. But there's you don't know this.
So it's a lot more prevalent than most people realize.
What do you think about
And
this?
it's,
Have they taken a position on
it's typically, it's a physical problem, it's not.
That's what I'm speaking
It's
of.
something.
Oh.
Well,
So
you're not
yes,
going to
okay.
trace it, if you don't tell terms or somebody that's
I
good.
want to see where the PhD in there.
Yeah, I know.
It's not the case, but I always felt that the school board is probably more contentious role than even city council.
Because you're messing with people's kids.
Exactly.
Me and Ron had a big
See, I
conversation
made
about it
the
today.
one I made with my heart, but I should have. That's,
Lord,
that's,
Mexico.
that's something I really want. My head goes on one thing, my heart goes on another.
He's been coming out and working with me and talking. Okay.
It does, it does.
He's worked time.
Shelley not gonna make it now.
She's gonna make it. She's gonna be on video when she's sick.
Okay, the council are here. We are going to call our study session to order. We are short-handed this evening. Ms. Moore is ill. She's we're gonna for the session have her on the screen and audio so we can have a quorum. And the other two, Councilman Fox and Councilman Gunn, are out of town. And of course, Wayne Bowen is out of state. Per the reason we have candidates here with us tonight. We will be videoing the presentation from the candidates, so that will be able to be viewed by those not here and also to the public, right? It'll be online, okay? So you're going to be stars here in a few minutes. So first off, we're going to do the beautiful business property of the month, and if Gina Hull will come forward along with Roddy Guard from the committee, and we will make this presentation. Gina, thank you for being here. Dr. Moon is out of town. Not only do we have a beautiful building out on what has been referred to as KFBS Hill, I guess, by those who've been here longer than I have, but it's a beautiful building and a great expanding business in our city. But it is also not only a beautiful building, but it's a beautiful property. In that Dr. Moon and staff have taken upon themselves to beautify the property, and they have earned this month the beautiful business property of the month. So Gina, who is representing the staff, and Dr. Moon this evening, we say congratulations and thank you for all of the efforts that you and staff have put forth to help to beautify our fine city. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you. Okay. And a few words from you on behalf of the staff.
I just want to say thanks for nominating us. We really enjoyed being in our new facility. We've been there for almost 3 years. Can actually better serve the people of Cape Girardeau and surrounding counties. But it's a very beautiful building. If you haven't been out to see us, please come by and take a look.
I've been there a few times.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have with the resignation and the moving out of state of Councilman Bowen, we have solicited citizens in Ward 6 to ensure that that seat is filled with a interested and qualified citizen to fill the unexpired term of Councilman Wayne Bowen. And we've got results. And this evening is the time where we're here to hear from each of the applicants and let them tell their story to the three of us that are here and also to those that are not. And I think that we will, and we'll have that for the other council, as I said, and the citizens also. So Yeah, Darren is here. I just saw you. Come on up to the front row. I think what we're going to do is do this in alphabetical order. So I'm going to ask Danny Essner to come forward. We have your application. And communicate to us and council and all our citizens your interest and involvement and commitment.
How much
to
time do I
this.
have? I'll make this brief. I'm going to start out by telling you why I'm interested, and then I'm going to go into why I feel like I'm qualified. But for those of you who know me, you know that I'm very passionate about Cape Girardeau. I can't think of any place I'd rather live and work and raise my family, although I'm currently retired. I'm a retired banker. I was involved in banking and finance for 45 years, so I have a fairly good knowledge of financial matters. But as great as Cape is, and I think it's a wonderful place, there's always room for improvement. And my goal basically is to help make Cape the best it can be. And I think there's still several areas, where there's room for improvement. Now I'm interested in a wide variety of things that happen in Cape. I was on the park board for 9 years. I'm currently a member of the Park Board Foundation. I'm on the committee that's pursuing the renewal of the Parks and Recs tax next spring. I was a chamber member, and I'm still a chamber member for probably 30 years. I was on the beautification committee for probably 20 years until they disbanded it. I'm currently on the transportation committee because I'm also interested in streets and infrastructure. I'm currently a member of the Old Town Cape Board. I'm actually on their executive committee. I'm very proud of what's happened in downtown Cape. We've made tremendous progress in the last 10 years. I think the best is yet to come. We're just building momentum right now, and there's lots of opportunity for additional growth there. So I've always enjoyed serving the community and working with others like myself that are passionate about the community, and I just want to do what I can to help. But once again, make Cape the best it can be. And I feel like the last 20 or 30 years, I've actually been in training for this position. So anyway, any questions?
One for me, Danny, you said the best that it can be, and proud of downtown and room for growth, but room for improvement. There's some room for improvement. Where would you say, what would be a thrust of you as a councilman, as an area or areas for improvement?
I would like to see our Parks and Recs department continue to expand.
Okay.
I think we need to continue to enhance Cape Splash. A development like that, it needs to have some upgrades periodically to keep people interested. I think our streets need a lot of work and attention, and I know we have a plan to take care of maintenance issues on an ongoing basis, and it's going to take a while to get that done, but I know that's a major concern of our citizens, just to get our streets repaired. In the area of public safety, I'd like to be able to find a way to, increase our staffing on the police department. I think they do a great job, but I know that they're spread thin, and that becomes more challenging all the time. I know funding for the city is going to continue to be a challenge as sales tax revenues continue to decline as people do more and more of their shopping online. So that's an issue that's going to have to be addressed at some point in time.
Okay.
So there's several areas that.
Council, any other questions of Danny? Joe?
I think Danny covered
Okay.
what I had to ask.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Very much.
Darren? Darren Hickey.
First of all, I want to say thanks for letting us have this opportunity. Most people know me from being at the police department and being the spokesman for over 5 years. But most people don't know my background. I grew up in Southeast Missouri. I was born and raised in Poplar Bluff. Went off to college to Ole Miss. Found out I couldn't afford law school, so I became a cop. And it still continues that way. But a couple years ago, I left the police department full-time and became an office manager for my wife at Audiology Associates. And we've seen that business grow over 200% in the last 2 years. And part of that's, I'm going to give her all the credit, but part of that is organization. Part of that is learning. And I think that's a position here that we all have to be willing to learn. Do I know everything about the council? No, but I want to learn. And I went from being a police officer to an office manager, and where now I'm in charge of marketing and business development and advertising. And it's just kind of allowed me to see more of the city. I've seen the city. I've been on every street. I've talked to everybody in every neighborhood. And I've heard those concerns. But now I want to do it from a different aspect, from a different side of the bench. So Dr. Bowman always called himself the champion of public safety. And I think I will pick up his torch where he left. As a former police officer, I've been in law enforcement over 18 years. I've held positions as narcotics officer, detective, patrolman, media relations. And as a media relations guy, I took on so many more hats with federal grant money, with being on different committees, with instruction, and with our new officers and new hires. So I see a different part of the city than what some other people have seen, and I see what we can be, and also living in other parts of this country, from the East Coast in Wilmington, North Carolina, to Mississippi, to Joplin, Missouri, to ended up here. I have 2 kids that are in the school district, in the public school district. I own a business in this town now. I'm a former city employee. I've got more buy-in to see the city succeed than a lot of people. So, but I just want to keep it going. I want to keep it. I want to see the city prosper. When there's a lot of economic downturn across the state, our city is pretty well maintained. You know, I've learned in the last 2 years as being an office manager that if you're not moving upward, you're moving backwards. There is no status quo. There is no just maintaining. We've got to keep on looking at getting better and keep on growing and try to benefit the city and seeing the city prosper. Prosper is a word that I love to use for our business, and I would like to see this city continue to prosper.
Okay.
Any questions?
What challenges do you think that the community has moving forward?
More specifically, challenges.
What challenges do you think?
Well, I think education is a big one. That's what I ran into as a police officer. So much time the public doesn't see all aspects and doesn't see, you know, what the city council is dealing with, what the budgets are, what, you know, sales tax revenue, things like that. And so I think education is a big one, is one of the biggest challenges that no matter what your position is, that you have to overcome, whether it be from owning a business or running a city.
Robbie?
I don't know, you kind of answered everything. Is there anything that you would change right now with anything that comes to mind, or something that you've wanted to change? Or
No, I mean, I think you always have to look for signs of improvement. You know, in the police department, being very well versed in that. I know electronics and technology is behind the times, and I would like to see, you know, I know we're working on radio interoperability, communications with that, but computers and infrastructure of the computer system really needs to be taken a look at with the records management system, which is a very, very expensive piece, but you know, that's the crux of it. If you can't keep track of your report management, your records management, then, you know, you're falling behind the time. So that's one thing that I think that ought to be a focus as well.
Is it your intent to run in the election in April?
I've actually, yes, I am. I have considered that. I've spoken with several people that would assist me in that. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this, so reaching out to a lot of people, getting advice from lots of friends and family and neighbors.
Per that question, we really are encouraging and asking that any of the four of you, while you're appointed till April, that election will be coming up, and you're eligible to make that own decision for yourself. Do you want to just get a council work and be done, and this is really kind of an opportunity you have to experience it for a while. And I think the filing opens in October and ends in the later part of November. So you could have a little bit of time on here to decide, really, if that's what you want to do. But there's no prerequisite that you can't. We kind of did that last time, and I kind of promoted that a little bit. I think that was a mistake. I think you should be able to continue on in that career and then run for election and let not the council decide on you for a few months, but the citizens decide on whoever it is for a 4-year term. Okay. Darren, thank you for your interest.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Well, good evening. I think that this is an opportunity just too good to pass up. You know, for a lot of years, I have my business in Cape. I raised our family in Cape, and being from Jackson, sometimes I caught some grief about that. But other than that, it was I caught the grief in Jackson of being a turncoat more than anything else. But I've really enjoyed my time in Cape. We raised 4 children here. Had a great education. They unfortunately I can't get any of them to come back, but they kind of have distributed all over the country. You know, I was looking at the list of candidates, and you guys, I think you have really good candidates in front of you. I don't think you can go wrong any way you do it. I guess my job tonight is try to make your decision a bit easier. And from what I've heard, that's not going to be an easy job either. But years ago, for several years, I served on the Cape School Board. And one of the things I found with that opportunity was that almost no one should come into a position with an agenda. During my time on the school board, we did have some people that came into the board with an agenda. It took them about 2 or 3 meetings to find out that, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Because we just have you think you have a lot of information, you get in and find out that, no, you really didn't know much at all of what was going on. And that's probably the biggest thing I found was with the school board was that when I got on it, I'd studied it and I'd checked it out, and I thought I knew everything I needed to know. Well, that took about the first 30 minutes of the first meeting I was in to figure out maybe in over my head, but found out that I wasn't later on. And you know, I've heard everyone talk about the opportunities and the problems in Cape, and I agree with a lot of what they've said. There are some things in Cape that I would like to see. Our tax rate is obviously going to be an issue with all of the online purchases and things like that. The declining tax revenues I think it's a problem for most cities in the country. We're not unique in that part. And so, what I want to talk about tonight a little bit more is what I would think that being on the city council would be my goal to be, and how I would approach it. When I was on the school board, I found one thing, that the biggest mistake I made on the school board is I made a decision one time with my heart rather than, and my head was telling me probably was not a good idea, but I really felt deep inside this is what I needed to do. And probably was the most disruptive thing I'd ever done. And I was on my time in the school board. And I didn't research it well enough. I didn't listen to my head versus my heart. So I think you really have to be able to temper that somewhat. Someone asked me this recently, I told them I was going to be talking about, and they said, would you make that same decision again? I said, man, I would have to really consider it, because looking back, I thought was really good for a couple of individuals, you almost have to say, well, I think it was good for them, but was it good for everybody? I don't know. It was one of these things that didn't work out like I wanted it to, but maybe I could have made a couple other changes, tempered it a little bit, and made it work out for everybody. During my time on the board, I was fortunate enough to serve on a national committee. That committee met out in Washington, D.C. every year, and I had the opportunity to spend time with people like John Danforth and Lamar Alexander, people that Bill Bradley, people that I had a lot of respect for and learned from. And I think one of the things I found in there listening to these guys, that many times you finally just have to agree to disagree to get things done. You know, you can sit there and ride your high horse as long as you want to, but all you're doing is delaying things. So you guys might not always agree on a decision, but it comes to a point in time where a decision has to be made. And whether you agree with it or not, the decision's got to be made. So it made it get to that point. So I don't really have any problem with I think many times you try to get everyone to agree on everything. Well, this really doesn't happen. And it's great when it does, but there's sometimes you say, well, it's time for me to bite the bullet. The other people on the board know what they want, and they think they have maybe they have a better grip on it than I do, and go on. Another thing I've learned over the years is that many times sometimes you need to be a guide rather than a leader. Some people they react to leadership differently. One of the things I did, I went to a leadership conference one time, and that was actually the crux of the whole thing, was guiding people rather than leading them. And the difference in the guiding and leading is letting people find their own way, and just point them in a direction, let them find their own way. And I think that you're in a leadership position, that is something that it takes a certain skill. One of the things I think that I have a tough time with is you always need to listen more than you talk. And nobody's ever accused me of being a shrinking violet. I like to talk, and I think my wife thinks I like to hear myself talk. And she may be right for all I know. But anyway, make yourself available, and you need to listen to the people around. We can talk about problems all over town. We had, for example, our street completely replaced this last year. The guys from Nip Kelly did a great job, and all I heard was most of the neighborhoods were just really very, very complimentary about how they did it, and had one neighbor that just complained all the time. And I was talking to him one day, and I said, "Do you ever ask these guys how they're doing?" No. I said, they bust their butt pretty hard to make this thing work, and you just tried to kind of bull your way through. And I said, you need to listen a little bit more rather than be so demanding. And I for sure if I got through to him or not. But anyway, it was one of these things that I'm convinced that when you're in a leadership position, you need to listen more than you talk. You want to be available to your constituents. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes that availability infringes upon more than just your time. There are times when I found that I really had something I really needed to be doing or wanted to be doing, and this thing sat in the back of your mind said, I need to take care of this. And so you just have to do it. There's one thing I never heard anybody talk about tonight that I would like to bring up is, mentioned earlier that I grew up in Jackson, and I would like to see better cooperation between the communities. I know the board, the councils have worked together somewhat. And when I'm around, I actually go to Jackson for a bunch of my high school team classmates, and I get together every once in a while for lunch, and they don't know what's going on in Cape, and many times I don't know what's going on in Jackson, and it's still almost, in their opinion, sometimes it's still an us against them thing, and I really would like to see more cooperation between the two communities if the whole area, the county, I believe we need to get to the point where we don't have that animosity either direction. That's kind of the side. I think it's more about leadership than it is about problems, folks. I really do. I think that you come into something like this, you have to open your eyes and be ready to find out exactly what it's all about. I'm convinced at this time that I don't know what your problems are. I know some of them, and I know some of the issues we have, and also know there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I too I've enjoyed Cape, and I just like to make it better.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Question?
Can you touch on some of the social groups that you're a member of? I know for myself, being connected to many of the constituents and being able to not just educate them on what some of the city's issues are, but be able to hear what some of their issues are, has been very important during my time on the council.
I think that's extremely important. Yeah. And like I said, you get that by listening. And just recently, I was in this group and we're talking about some of the street work being done in Cape, and they were really very positive. Man, every time you turn around, Cape's getting the streets fixed. Wish we were doing that over here, So it's just good to hear.
Robbie?
No, not in a long time.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
You bet.
Thank you.
Teresa?
Thank you. First, I want to thank the council for the transparency of this process. I think my understanding is you would have the purview to just identify somebody within your own spheres of influence and name someone to fill this vacancy. And I really appreciate that you made it such an open process and solicited applications from anyone in Ward 6. And so first of all, I'm just very appreciative that you did that and that you allowed me to be a part of this process. And I second that you won't go wrong with anybody who's applied for this position, but I appreciate being on this docket. I just want to give a little bit about my background and then about my motivation for applying for this Ward 6 position. I have lived in Cape Girardeau most of my life. My parents moved here in 1985, and for my mom, that was a move back because she's a Tally and fourth generation Cape. So I did go to Central High School, graduated from Southeast Missouri State University with a degree in political science. Then right after college, I moved to Washington, D.C., then to St. Louis, where I got my MBA at WashU, and then I moved back to Cape in 2003. And so I've been here since then. I'm married to Eric Wilkie, who's a special education teacher at Jackson High School, and I've sat on the Jackson side of the game. And so it's hard to kill those habits, but yeah. He's a Jackson High School special education teacher, and we have two daughters who are high school students in the Cape Public Schools. So during my time at Southeast, I actually served as an intern for Congressman Bill Emerson and Senator John Danforth. And these experiences really set a trajectory for my interest in public policy and in governance, along with my father's work as a lobbyist in Washington and both of my parents having such a commitment to community service and advocacy. Whenever I was in Senator Danforth's internship program, I remember we were having our very first meeting with the senator, and we were going around the room and talking about sort of our university and where we were from. And as the circle started, I heard Wellesley and Yale and Mizzou, and I could feel beads of sweat forming on my brow, and I was getting nervous because I'm from Southeast Missouri State University. And I said my name and where I was from, and the senator stopped and he he very pointedly said, our public institutions are producing some of our greatest work and greatest minds, and you should be so proud of that. And I was so touched that he took the time to do that. And then and I am proud. And so that was just incredible kindness that he gave to me. So I've actually had several mentors, both SEMO faculty and also in those opportunities working in Washington. When I worked for Senator Danforth, I was working with Tracy Henke, who was at the time his legislative aide, doing research for education policy. My chairperson of my political science department, Peter Bergeson, one of his requirements of my internships was journaling, which I'm so thankful for because it's one of my most special mementos of my time in DC. Both it's humorous now looking back at some of it, but it was a very special time. After SEMO, I was hired by the Clinton administration, and much of the work that I did there was really about aligning interests and agendas, and both in terms of finding common ground and seeing that common ground appear among different groups, engaging partners to participate in that process, and then really articulating that vision for those groups. I also worked quite a bit with management administration of the Executive Office of the President, so all of the things that go with sort of administrative management of an organization. So when I came back home to Missouri, I got my MBA coursework was really focused on strategic consulting and organizational processes. When I came back to Cape Girardeau in 2003, I took a position with the Southeast Missouri Network Against Sexual Violence. And then I was hired by the Missouri Research Corporation, which is now I think the Missouri Innovation Corporation, to work on business plans and facilitate some of that groundwork when they first started the MRC. I served as the SEMO's Director of Grant Development for 6 years. So in that role, I was able to work with deans and administrators, University Foundation, partners of the university to secure federal grants and design programs that really benefited both the infrastructure of the university and community partners. So my recent experience has been a consultant designing multi-sector initiatives that really focus on social determinants of health, and particularly in higher education and healthcare sectors. And so most of my projects are highly participatory. So I have a lot of experience synthesizing feedback, getting authentic input from communities, and driving teams toward collective impact, including sort of the infrastructure for that. My projects are also very focused on data integration and using technology to improve health outcomes. So that's a lot of what I'm doing professionally. Looking at CAPE's horizon and sort of from the time that I've been here and going forward, I'm not an expert in economic development, but from what I understand of sort of the realms of economic development, that there's 3 broad dimensions of growth, prosperity, and inclusion. And I think CAPE is going to have to be purposeful, intentional about deepening inclusion, which has shown to be a driver of improved health outcomes, social equity, and economic growth, which are all things I kind of saw in the strategic planning paperwork and some of the materials that have been publicly shared. And really in a way of sort of making it more than consultative and really allowing people to have authority and really have power in decision making. And it's not that we're not doing it right, it's just requires so much purposeful focus and intention to do that. I was reviewing actually the strategic plan update and some of the PowerPoints that were shared, and I have to commend Ms. Moore, who I know is sort of home, but that, you know, a third of the residents that participated in those listening sessions were from her ward. So she's doing a great job of really engaging her ward residents in these processes and sort of taking some proactive effort around that. So my interpretation of the data when I looked at the survey that was sort of independent of those sessions is that residents felt pretty confident in like the economic development and fiscal discipline components, and they saw more room for improvement in areas like health, safety, and neighborhood improvement. And as a community, I think we're going to have to clearly define what we mean by improving a neighborhood. What does that mean? What are we really talking about? And I think this is something when we were looking at that, whenever I was working on, I served on the Vision 2020 Community Relations Council 10 years ago, we were doing neighborhood development, neighborhood improvement. And so it's not it's a complex issue, and it's not going to have simple solutions. And it means different things to different people when you say neighborhood improvement. And so most of the clients I work with are working in areas that have extreme disparities. And what I often tell them is that if the conversation's uncomfortable, you're in the right place. And that if it's awkward, lean into it, because you're having a conversation that needs to be had. Then now you know you're really getting somewhere. And I think that's where not shying away from those conversations. I think that's something that we're really going to need to do as a community. So to the council, I would say I think most of you probably don't know me personally. I don't. I'm not on a chamber committee or the Lions Club or Optimist Club, but I organize school parties for every single one of my daughter's classrooms in grade school, and I worked through my church and other churches to really bridge communities. So my experience living in this community has been different than yours, but it's been very engaged in a different way. And so even though we may not be in the same personal circles of influence, I really do believe there's got to be somebody that guided me or mentored me or had a vision for me since I grew up here that you know as well. There can't be more than 2 degrees of separation from us. And so, if you believe in what this community can produce, I think you can trust in me because I am a product of this community. So final note, we did have our Talley family reunion this last weekend, and there were stories told of this sort of core family of siblings from which all the descendants, all the people who had attended had descended, and characterizations of their personality and what represented them, their wit and their kindness. And I thought, well, what would I want my thing to be 5 generations from now? And I really hope that it's my compassion and my intellect and the way that those are braided together to advocate for other people and to improve lives. So I'd really like to do that as a member of the city council, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay. Robbie? Anything?
I don't have any questions. I just, you're right, it's 2 degrees of separation because I graduated with your sister. And you have a very impressive resume. That's the one thing I wanted to, you have a phenomenal background.
Thank you.
I have no questions because
Okay.
you could answer them better than I could ask.
I will echo that. Joe?
Do you intend to run in the election in April?
That's a great question, and I thought about that long and hard of how I would answer that tonight. I appreciate, Mayor, that you offer. I haven't done this job before, so I am open to that. I'm absolutely open to doing that in April. I wouldn't be ready to commit to doing that today, but I think if I determined that another person would be better than me, I would do everything I could to make sure that that person's successful, whether it be campaigning for them, making sure everything gets, communicated clearly, whatever I could do to transfer. But I am open to doing that and would definitely leave that as a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Well, number one, I think we all, myself and I think all of us will say that as we approach this and ask for citizens to step forward, that we can say we succeeded with 4 quality candidates. So thank you for, number one, thank you for stepping forward to offer to serve the city. Our council is going to, on 21st, that's 2 weeks from tonight, announce our selection for council here at the 821 meeting. We will at that time swear you in and have you seated. So you'll be right to work that evening on the 21st. So I would invite all of you to be here that evening. And again, emphasize that you can run and for the seat in April. 3 of you won't be selected. I would ask you to stay involved. You've shown an interest. You have been interested in our city. You have served our city. You are qualified, so stay involved and even if you aren't selected, you can still run in April as you move forward. If you elect not to do that, stay involved with the city. I know you'd be involved in clubs and in education and others, but stay involved in the city. There are many boards and commissions that are available in our city. Some of you have already served on them for years, but stay involved and continue your dedication that you've shown to date as you've stepped forward for this position. So we will see you on the 21st. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate all of your presentations. And you're welcome to stay for our study session, and then our regular session is at 7 if you want to see really how a few of us work. Okay, very good. Not an obligation, that's for sure. Thank you again for being here. Okay. Anyone here to appear before the council on any item that is not on the agenda? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Bill Coleman, President of Cape Leadership Alliance. My members are a little concerned about the travel advisory for the state of Missouri. So I'd like to get maybe the council or the police chief to kind of break this down. So when I go back to the meeting and talk to my members, I can let them know that as far as Cape, there isn't something to be totally concerned about, because right now we're a little confused on exactly how this is going to work and who is targeted. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We are too. And I will tell you, we are concerned about it. And everything that I've heard from our staff and our chamber and our Convention Visitors Bureau and all of the people that do so much work for our city, we are a welcoming city. We always have been. We will continue to be. We welcome thousands and thousands of visitors every year, and to many events. And we are studying a response. We haven't heard any much of a response statewide on this issue, but we're studying a response that will be fitting to what I say is the culture of Cape Girardeau, to speak for our city. And it will basically be that we are a welcoming city. And that's what I will tell you tonight, and I appreciate you coming because it's a today's topic.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else speak on any item not on the agenda? Okay. Take us through the agenda, Scott.
All right, we do have one presentation tonight. We'll be recognizing John Ryan, who's a captain for the fire department, and him and his family, I hope, will be here, and recognizing him for his service and wishing him well. Communication and reports. Council, do you have items you'd like to report?
I want to talk a little bit about the concert last Saturday night as we culminated our K-9 presentation. It was a great concert attended by nearly 400 people, and a lot of effort by Jerry Ford to do that. And it really was a celebration of the ending of that. And I'm going to let Chief Blair give some figures. As they're not quite final yet, but they're final enough to put a smile on the chief's face. And we'll announce those this evening. I'd like, Wes, if you would do that. Okay. It's going to be right just at $80,000, folks. 80. No. This is at 7. I'd say it at 7. And then still a few sponsorships yet to come in that are committed. So what a great event. Not only fundraising, but a lot of friend raising, and we found a lot of friends for public safety and our police department through the months of this year. Anyone else? Joe?
On that note, I would like to ask that at a future study session, we hear from Chief Blair on where we stand with the community in terms of our crime rates in Cape. I know we've heard of a lot of violent crime in the news recently, and would like to hear about what the police department is doing reactively in that regard.
Okay.
And where you think we need improvement. I mean, on how you could receive the resources that you need, or what types of things you guys are doing.
Okay. Robbie, anything? No. Okay. Staff, anything from staff?
Staff has anything else tonight? We do have 5 public hearings tonight. We have the proposed property tax rates. Council, we will need a amendment to that motion in that we now have the final numbers on what it was. We just got those from the county, I think late Friday. So I think you have, I don't know if you got it in front of you yet, but we'll have that for you to amend that, those rates.
So I have a copy for everybody
Yes.
on the rates. Okay. That'll have to be an amendment after we get the,
Usually we
Get
get
the
these
motion.
between the first reading and the second and third, but this time we got them a little early, so we're able to get them exactly right on the first reading. So we'll have those in front of you. Second public hearing will be about vacating the city's interest in a small strip of land on utility easement in Walden Park. The third one is a interest in a portion of right-of-way on the east side of Limbaugh Lane out at the new Veterans Memorial Drive. Fourth one will be rezoning of the property at 1429 Curry Lane, which is our old fire station, getting that to C1 in order to prepare it for sale once we move to the new fire station. And then the fifth public hearing is a special use permit for a vehicle washing facility out at on William Street Route K, just beyond Walmart there.
council will go through each of those and go to the new ordinance on number 20, 21, 22, 26, and 27. And 27 as we work our way through the public hearing. So we'll do those one at a time, following each public hearing.
Then we have the consent agenda tonight is second, third readings of the mobile home park ordinance, making those amendments. Second, third reading for the building codes. This is with the issue where we talked about KFVS brought up and we're concerned about the retrofitting of the KFVS tower. We did have a meeting with them last week and made some progress on that. And so they'll, I believe, will be submitting their plan hopefully within the next year or two. I can't remember which, 1 year. So did have that meeting, and this is just this was a housekeeping deal where when we made the change last time, we failed to leave out the amendment or the attachments. Number 9 is the record plat Route K. 10 is the Deer Creek subdivision record plat. Second, third readings of both of those. Number 11 will be approval of a IDA project for Southeast Hospital for them to rework some of their debt and move forward with that improvement. 12 is the license and indemnity agreement of the awning on 437 Broadway. Number 13 is another license and indemnity agreement for an awning and sign at 137 North Main Street. 14 and 15 are both regarding the airport for a partial overlay project on runway 02-20. And the first one is the agreement. The second one is a supplemental agreement for the consultant to do the construction work, construction inspection.
What's the timing on that? What's the timing on the runway?
Well, we actually think APEC will probably have this be their last project of the season. I'm hoping that's not the case, but that's what we're projecting, which is good.
September, October.
Say what?
Probably October, September, October.
I guess my interest is that it's
I'm going to encourage them to consider that. I don't
okay,
think their
but
last project-
my concern was that it's this year.
Oh, it's this year.
Okay,
This
very
calendar
good.
year, yeah.
That was, I guess I should have said that in my question. Thank you.
Then 16 and 17 are demolition of properties that have been condemned on on Good Hope, on Rainy, and on Independence Street. And then the Independence one is the one next to our fire station, which we purchased that property and taking that down for parking. And then the second one is at 130 South Frederick. That was awarded to 2 different contractors. That's the reason it's 2 different items. Number 18 is the setting of a public hearing for vacating a portion of Amethyst between North Middle and North Fountain. So it's asking you to set that, to set the public hearing for that. Are there any of those items you'd like to remove from the consent agenda? My understanding number 19 is
I would like to ask that when we adopt the agenda, that we amend the agenda to remove item 19 from the agenda. I did not get the necessary support in this body or from any private party to move forward with that project at this point, so I'd just like it removed so we can take it off the agenda. While I'm doing that, I would, for the record, and I will this evening, say that I am not giving up on continuing to find an identity for our downtown area, and I think it's in the arts. I think we've come a long way with murals. I think we've really come a long way with sculptures. We've come a long way with music. In the downtown area, Tunes at Twilight, the River Campus. I really think that we need to continue to promote the arts. I think that's kind of the identity that we've gotten so far down the road that we'll continue to pursue that and for not only our citizens but also our visitors, make downtown, Old Town Cape, a city of the arts. I would even, not for another time, but would even like to solicit a replacement for Old River Fest. A lot of us remember Old River Fest. That'd become a music fest, and that we continue to promote downtown in that manner. So while I'm asking that this be removed, I'll still continue to pursue that as an objective for Old Town Cape. So I need to have when we approve the agenda, that we amend the agenda to take item 19 off of the agenda, Council. Okay.
Under new ordinances, the numbers 20, 21, and 22, we've already covered with the public hearings. So those we will go to those afterwards. Numbers 23 and 24, a year or so ago, we had a request. Some folks on Park Street had a child who needed to have a handicap van in front of their house, and so we put that on. Well, now then they've moved, and so this is just the removal of that. Number 25 is the permanent easement along Limbaugh Lane. And then number 26 is also from the hearing. This is from the rezoning of Curry Lane at the fire station. And number 27 is a special use permit for the vehicle washing facility out on William. And then number 28 is the state block allowing me to execute an agreement, number 1, for the state block grant for the partial overlay. So this is another part of that overlay we talked about earlier. And the number 29 is the appointment of the Liquor License Review Board. I believe you've had the name of Brandon Cooper.
Brandon Cooper. I would like to recognize at that point in time, as we make that recommendation, to recognize Charles Speedy Wagner for his service to our community and to his service on this board.
Yeah, and he spent many years also on the golf board, and so he's served his community many years.
Okay, council, anything else that needs to come before us this evening? Again, we will be working to get Councilman Moore on both video and audio for the 7 o'clock meeting as we move forward. So we will then have a quorum. If there's no other business, we do need to have a closed session tonight, council, for to discuss legal action, litigation, and communications with our legal counsel on property acquisition, personnel matters pursuant to revised Missouri statutes, section 610, 021, 1, 2, and 3. If I could have a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Card. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We will go to closed session. And we'll reconvene at 7 p.m. I need to take that. And I need to take. No, I need to take that.
I don't know. I just looked at Eric and he kind of frowned, so I'm not sure.
Can we not go to closed session?
Well, I don't know.
I just thought of that when there are only 3 of us.
So Eric, did I go to close? She could be in there. She could be in there, but the question is,
Huh?
would she have to be a part of the vote for vote to go in? This Friday.
Bruce.
No, what I'm saying is, we already voted in open session. She didn't vote.
Bruce Taylor.
Can you
Is there anything you need to do tonight? Mostly information.
Yeah. So I can talk to you all about that individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just talk to them.
We'll just let it go.
It's not typical that so few.
It's the last time I'm gonna give this, after next week, I'm gonna give it to CVB for their memorabilia cage. I've worn it twice, so. Really? Next week? Oh, today, yeah. Oh, yeah. Today would have been nothing.
What is your code or it's just been healthy? Jason? I had to have, thank you. I had taken on the task of trying to tile my bathroom shower myself. And when I ripped the old shower out, water on the outside. Yes. So you can't tile with water lines on. So I called a buddy of mine, take it to I'm not doing it. You guys name it. So we came over twice, actually.
I guess it's all this, it's finding the funding, so we rip it out.
Right now, we're
every time I tried to cut the shower out, cut it down, they bring boards back.
But if you want to build them flat out, then they have a hard time. So it's really about, they have to see why we have to regulate.
So,
right,
so, yeah, it was, and then my other problem, I'm just curious on the first thing to see.
What could show? We looked at a different, rather than what we had, somebody else more of a
whole lot of time. Yeah, so you couldn't get the handle off it, you can't get back.
Sure. Well, I'm just curious, how many are using, how many are in Commander because they can't?
So you couldn't get the Allen out. Like the sets for the